word stylistics, I know there could be a lot of things that might have come into your mind, but I want you to remember just two things or two concepts in order to make all these things very simple. Just think of style and linguistics, as simple as that. Therefore, stylistics deals with the creativity of language use, or how the language is used in a certain context. Why stylistics is important? This is a very practical course, since every day we really need an adequate style in order to achieve our purpose of communicating. It may be to persuade or to inform the receiver of your message. We really need to be effective. Otherwise, we will not be able to convey the intended message. So a person's distinctive language habits, or the set of individual characteristics, is called style. That's the concept of style. So each one of us has our distinct style. We may know the same language, but the way we use the language is our style. The bottom line question here is, what's the style? That's the very known drama in a certain radio station before early in the morning. What's the style? So a language style depends on the intended function of language. So for example, if your intention is to inform, therefore the style must be formal. If your intention is to entertain, then your style must be humorous. So that's style as a person's distinctive language habits, or the set of individual characteristics of language use. Some or all of the language habits shared by a group of people at one time or over a period of time. So we can expect that in a certain community, there could be a certain style. It may vary from one person to another, but the probability of similarity is high in the same community. So stylistics is more on literature. Practitioners or stylisticians mostly focused on literature, because in literature you can venture a lot of style. Literature is very rich of style. But to tell you, literature is not, or stylistics is not limited to literature. It can also be applied to other forms of discourses, like in politics, in religion, or in business, like advertisements. For example, in politics, you can apply stylistics in the speeches of politicians. For religion, you can apply stylistics in the sermons of priests and pastors. In advertisements, yes, advertisements is very rich of style, because you really need to convince the consumers to patronize a certain product. So if we will focus on literature, we will be digging into, or we will have an in-depth study on the distinct style of a certain author. So for example, you have a favorite author of a novel which you are so addicted. For example, you are always buying his books, or like the books of Nicholas Sparks. There might be something in his style that you really like. So upon studying the style of Nicholas Sparks, you are already doing stylistics. So for example, also if you focus on other forms of discourses like in news reporting or in official document style like KMGS, Kapuso Mo, Jessica Soho, or Rated K, the two programs have their own style. So perhaps you would say Kapuso Mo, Jessica Soho, or Jessica Soho herself is very adequate in terms of retaining the attention of the mass audience. So the style of writing, for example, in the academic setting, we will be focusing, for example, in literature, we really need to analyze with depth and clarity. That is why this particular course has been designed to introduce to you the importance of literary style. So, what then is stylistics? Upon hearing a short background on what this course is all about, perhaps you already have a brief definition of stylistics when you are asked to define it. So, stylistics, it is a discipline that studies the ways in which language is used. It is a discipline that studies the style of language is used, or language in use. I already mentioned that minutes ago. So stylistics is a method of textual interpretation in which primacy of place is assigned to a language. So the main subject here is really language. The text functional significance as discourse acts in turn as a gateway to its interpretation. So the function of language is inseparable to the study of stylistics because it's the gateway to our interpretation of style. Therefore, style is really dependent to the function of language. Other features of stylistics include the use of dialogue, including regional accents and people's dialects, descriptive language, the use of grammars such as the active voice or passive voice. So you can examine whether this author is fond of using active voice or passive voice, or the way he constructs his sentences, or the way he uses metaphors, or what are the literary devices that are common in his writing. So the more metaphors or the more literary devices in a certain literary writing, probably the more tasty is it to the readers. So the preferred object of study in stylistics is literature. Again, literature, but Remember, it's not limited to literature, as I said minutes ago. So whether that be institutionally sanctioned literature as high art or more popular non-canonical forms of writing. The traditional connection between stylistics and literature brings with it two important caveats, though. Creativity and innovation in language use should not be seen as the exclusive preserve of literary writing. So, creativity and innovation in language use is not, again, limited to literary writing. I already discussed this minutes ago. The techniques of stylistic analysis are much more about deriving insights about linguistic structure and function as they are about understanding literary text. Meaning, we will go into the surface structure and the deep structure. When you say surface, you will focus on the forms like phonology, morphology, syntax. But when you say deep structure or the meaning, we are already going to semantics and pragmatics. So the function is very crucial in the function of language is very crucial in studying stylistics. So stylistics is a branch of linguistics which studies style in a scientific and systematic way concerning the manners, linguistic features of different varieties of language at different levels. I'm already talking about levels, so since you are language majors, you already have a prior idea about the branches of linguistics from phonetics to pragmatics. So any utterance or piece of text, utterance, I'm emphasizing here utterance because it's not limited to text. Stylistics is not limited to text. So any utterance or piece of text is organized through several distinct levels of language. So the levels of language might be or will be discussed on our next video. So I hope that with our video lecture today, you have gathered the necessary information that would open your interest to this course. So assume that at the end of this semester, you will be doing stylistic analysis of a certain literary text, for example. So from now on, I suggest that you will start to love reading and try to be keen observant on the style of the author, on how or what are the literary devices that the author is comfortable or the author prefers or preferred to use. So goodbye for now. Thank you for listening.